Hello, my name is Kristen Bolden and I'd like to welcome you to The Other Side of History. Now in this video we are going to talk on the composer Felix Mendelssohn, and also I'd like to play some of his music for you. Felix Mendelssohn, he lived from 1809 to 1847, and his full name was actually Jakob Ludwig Felix Mendelssohn Bartholdy, and he came from a notable line. His grandfather was Moses Mendelssohn, and he was a great philosopher. His father was Abraham Mendelssohn, and he was a banker who brought a fortune to the family. However, although Felix's father was a successful banker, he was not of creative talent, and he would joke that he was formerly the son of his father, and now the father of his son, end of quote. Felix was only 9 when he first appeared as a pianist in a recital. 2 years later, he started seriously to compose. He was a musical prodigy. It was said that what he could do with playing at sight, it bordered on the miraculous, and this was at a very early age. Mendelssohn was only 17 when he wrote his A Midsummer Night's Dream. It was also Felix Mendelssohn who restored to the musical world one of the greatest masterpieces of all times, and that's Bach's St. Matthew's Passion. Mendelssohn was only 20 when he conducted a performance of this fabulous work of Bach's. Felix was not the only musician in his family. His older sister's name was Fanny, and was said to have been born with Bach fugue fingers, and besides being an excellent pianist, was also a successful composer. However, in that time, it was not considered proper for a woman to pursue a career in music, and so she remained an active but non-professional musician. Fanny was Felix's favorite, and he included actually 6 of his sister Fanny's compositions among his own works. Felix was one of 4 siblings. His younger sister was a good singer, and his younger brother was also an outstanding cellist. Felix Mendelssohn, his works are perfection and have a beautiful sentimentality to them. However, first, I would like to play for you a song that is titled Song Without Words, which actually might have been written by Fanny for her brother, Felix. Felix was born in Hamburg, Germany, and the family, they moved to Berlin in 1811. they had to leave Hamburg in disguise because of fear of French reprisal from the Mendelssohn's Bank's role in breaking Napoleon's continental system blockade. Felix was 20 years old when he visited England and Scotland for the first time. His first letter from Edinburgh says, "Everything here looks so stern and robust, half enveloped in a haze of smoke or fog. Moreover, there is to be a bagpipe competition tomorrow. Many Highlanders came in costume from church, victoriously leading their sweethearts in their Sunday attire and casting magnificent and important looks over the world, with long red beards, tartan plaids, bonnets and feathers and naked knees, and their bagpipes in their hands. And they passed quietly along by the half-ruined grey castle on the meadow where Mary Stuart lived in splendor and saw Rizzio murdered." End quote. He ends his letter with how kind the people are in Edinburgh and how generous is the good God. End quote. During his tour of the palace where Queen Mary lived, Felix said that he found in the old chapel the beginning for his Scotch symphony. It was this visit that also inspired his Reformation Symphony. In the last movement of the Reformation Symphony, Mendelssohn, he takes as one of his themes the Lutheran chorale, "A mighty fortress is our God." He presents it in different ways, and he uses it as a triumphant finale to his work. In 1830, Mendelssohn's Reformation Symphony, it was commissioned to be performed for the festival of the Augsburg Confession. However, political upheavals of that year prevented the work from being performed. Felix's trip to England, it was a great success, and he returned repeatedly afterward. His music was very popular with the English aristocracy, and he was invited to many social gatherings. He met Queen Victoria and her husband, Prince Albert, who was himself a composer. The royal couple both greatly admired Mendelssohn's music. Victoria would sing and play the piano with Mendelssohn, and once requested to publicly perform a duet of one of his pieces with him. After the performance, Mendelssohn surprised the Queen by telling her that this favored piece of hers was actually written by his sister Fanny. It was Queen Victoria that started the trend, which is still used today, when she used Mendelssohn's Wedding March for her daughter's wedding. England became Mendelssohn's second home, so to speak. It was also in England that Mendelssohn first performed his wonderful oratorio, Elijah, and the concert was a tremendous success. Mendelssohn moved to Leipzig and soon became the center of Leipzig's musical life. He made Leipzig his permanent home, and he married the daughter of a clergyman of the French Reformed Church. The marriage was happy, and they were blessed with 5 children. Under the protectorate of the King of Saxony, Felix founded in Leipzig a conservatory of music, for which he secured the services of teachers of rank, such as Ferdinand David, a great violinist, and Robert Schumann. Felix wrote many kinds of music, including concertos, sonatas, and cantatas. I would like to now play for you a violin concerto that Mendelssohn wrote for his friend and violinist, Ferdinand David. The tune that I will play for you is from the second movement. Years after conducting one of his symphonies, Felix wrote to his father, "I was received with long and loud applause. The orchestra accompanied me well, and the composition also had its merits, and gave much satisfaction to the audience. They wished to recall me, in order to give me another round of applause, according to the prevailing fashion here. But I was modest and would not appear." End quote. As you might have guessed from the names in the Mendelssohn family, Felix came from a Jewish family. His father was a prominent Jewish philosopher in the German Jewish community. However, Felix was initially raised without religion, and when he was 7, he was baptized by the Reformed Protestant minister of the Jerusalem church. Now, this was when Felix was given the additional names Jacob or Jakob Ludwig. So Felix's father had renounced the Jewish religion prior to Felix's birth. His father, being a banker, didn't want to deal with anti-Semitism, and this is given as a reason why he converted to Christianity. Felix's father and mother were also baptized and formally adopted the surname Mendelssohn-Bartholdy for themselves and their children. Bartholdy was added at the suggestion of Felix's mother's brother, who had inherited a property named Bartholdy and had adopted this name, Bartholdy, for his own surname. The grandfather, Moses Mendelssohn, was very unhappy with members of his household becoming Christians. He said, "There can no more be a Christian Mendelssohn than there can be a Jewish Confucius." End of quote. The adopting of the name Bartholdy was meant to demonstrate that there was a deliberate break with the traditions of the Jewish grandfather, Moses Mendelssohn. As Felix started his musical career, his father had requested that he drop the surname Mendelssohn and only go by Bartholdy. Felix, he refused to do this, but in deference to his father, he would always sign his letters and cards printing Mendelssohn Bartholdy. Felix was both conscious and proud of his Jewish ancestry, and also his connection with his grandfather, Moses Mendelssohn. Felix was the prime mover to having a complete edition of his grandfather's, Moses Mendelssohn's, work to be published. Felix's younger sister, her name was Rebecca, and she once complained to Felix about an unpleasant relative. Felix responded, "What do you mean by saying you are not hostile to Jews? I hope this was a joke. It is really sweet of you that you do not despise your family, isn't it?" End of quote. During the Nazi reign, it was illegal to play Mendelssohn. There was a prominent statue of him in Leipzig that was destroyed by the Nazis. The composer, Richard Wagner, was the special favorite of Adolf Hitler, and like Hitler, Wagner, he was anti-Jewish. 3 years after Mendelssohn's death, Wagner, he wrote faint praise of the composer in an anti-Jewish pamphlet. He said, "Mendelssohn has shown us that a Jew may have the amplest store of specific talents, may own the finest and most varied culture, the highest and tenderest sense of honor, yet without all these preeminencies helping him, were it but one single time to call forth in us that deep, that heart-searching effect which we await from art. the washiness and the whimsicality of our present musical style has been pushed to its utmost pitch by Mendelssohn's endeavor to speak out a vague and almost nugatory content as interestingly and spiritedly as possible. End quote. However, there are those who see Wagner's music as second-rate compared to Mendelssohn's. And in spite of himself, Wagner was influenced by Mendelssohn's music. Felix Mendelssohn was fortunate to have been born into a rich family, with loving parents who encouraged him to be a musician. He may have not lived under the Nazi reign, but it was difficult to be Jewish in Germany even at this time. There were all kinds of laws and taxes that applied only to Jews. Yet Mendelssohn left his mark on the musical world. After Mendelssohn's performance of Bach's St. Matthew Passion, it was said, "To think that it took an actor and a Jew's son to revive the greatest Christian music for the world." End quote. At this time, I would like to play for you another beautiful song by Mendelssohn, and it's called Preludium. The year was 1847, and Mendelssohn was at the height of success when something devastating happened. His sister, Fanny, whom he loved and was very close to, died in the month of May. Musicians can often be sensitive people, and Felix was a sensitive man. He was so completely bound to his sister that her passing undermined his whole being. After Fanny's death, Felix seemed to have no energy, and in November of that same year, he died of a ruptured blood vessel. Mendelssohn's compositions, they reflect his study of the Baroque and early classical music. He was deeply influenced by Johann Sebastian Bach. He lived near the church that Bach had worked at in Leipzig, and he had a statue mounted there in Bach's honor that is still standing today. Mendelssohn was truly one of the great 19th century Romantic composers. I hope that you have enjoyed this little musical. If you have, I would just encourage you to click on that subscribe button. It's an easy way for you to support this channel. I want to thank each one of you for listening and wishing you God's blessings.